Ladies and gentlemen, speaking of inspiring female leaders, we are starting right at the top today with a conversation with a woman in a senior global position, and she's joining us here today. Now, recent findings from McKinsey also show that women leaders, by the way, are twice as likely to be mistaken for someone junior in their organization, and also feel that characteristics such as gender, as well as being a parent, has also hindered them in getting that raise or that senior position. To help us understand a little bit more about women in their role on the global stage, it is a great privilege to have here with us today the Consul General of the United States of America in Dubai. Please give a very warm welcome to Her Excellency Meghan Gregonis. Welcome. Well, Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us and taking time out of your very busy schedule, I'm sure. But thank you for making time for us. I wanted to start off with your personal experience, as we've got you here. Tell us about your personal experience professionally on getting to where you are today. What sort of challenges and opportunities have you had along the way?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Laura, and also thanks to IGF for putting this topic, this important topic, on the agenda. It's a great pleasure to talk about it. I come from a very male-dominated field, diplomacy. When I entered the State Department, it was a very different organization more than 20 years ago, where women did not necessarily have a seat at the table. We had Madeleine Albright as our first female Secretary of State, and that was a breakthrough, but she was not necessarily my role model. She was a political appointee. So I looked at the tables of negotiations and discussions, and they were all male. So today we're in a very different place, but we're still very heavily male-dominated. And the challenges that women like me continue to face are, yes, we are confused for more junior staffers. We are told that we look very young for the positions that we encumber. I have been told, for example, at my last assignment in Western Europe, by the way, my contacts insisted, no, you must be the wife of the Consul General. You can't possibly be the Consul General. You don't look like a Consul General. Well, yes, a Consul General can look like me. Here in Dubai, I am the very first woman to be the American Consul General here. It's been a long time. Why haven't we had one sooner? Because of these barriers. Dubai, for example, is a very business-focused environment, and I think that it's been very difficult for women to demonstrate, I've got the qualifications and skills to be able to do this job and do it just as well or even better than my male colleagues.
So speaking of the UAE and Dubai, what do you think Dubai has been doing quite well when it comes to encouraging women into the workforce, especially women entrepreneurs, because I think they do quite well?
Yeah, UAE has an amazing success story, and in fact, they're really leading for the region. So when you look at the UAE in the public sector, 2/3 of public sector employees are female. 30% of those employees are in leadership positions. 42% of the UAE, their foreign service is female. These are really fantastic statistics, and they're really leading. Here in the business sector, there continue to be barriers, but there are amazing power women who have made it to the top, and they've got amazing teams around them, not just the women, but also the men who are supporting them. And I think that that's a really important element of making sure that those with the best qualifications, the women who are best qualified, are able to rise to the top.
Well, let's talk about the policy stage. What sort of changes need to be made right at the top in order for essential change to be made to get women into these global positions?
Yeah, it's so important. The top really needs to set gender equality as a policy priority. So here in the UAE, just going back for a second, 50% of the Federal National Council is female. That's really amazing. It's such an important body. In the United States, last year, we established a Gender Policy Council for the first time. We have a national strategy on gender policy. In the United States Department of State, we've even broadened it to be diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. I think that this is really common these days, but for us, it's not just lip service. We recognize that we are going to get a better product, a better result, the more diverse our team is, the better ideas there are out there, and the more we're leveraging the breadth of our human capital, we're going to be more successful.
A really interesting question. Do you think that women really can have it all when they're in these senior leadership positions, when it comes to juggling families, home life, whatever that might be, and also when it comes to your mental health? Like, how do you not endure burnout if you're trying to please everyone and you're married to everything?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's the challenge of our time, and it's really the challenge for my generation. I think it's getting better for more generations coming through. I think women, yes, can have it all. I think that men can have it all too. Men can be able to spend more time with their families as well. As a result, we need to be supporting each other. Unfortunately, I'm not the best role model because I don't have a family, but I do have a husband, and I want to make sure that I've got work-life balance and I've got some boundaries. And this is the advice that I give to all of my younger colleagues coming through the system. You need to set the boundaries, and once we have those boundaries set, then the work will be evenly distributed. You can do those tough jobs. You need to be available, you need to be flexible, but the men need to be flexible in the office, and everyone needs to work together as a team to carry the load and move forward.
And obviously with the pandemic, that's completely changed the landscape when it comes to work-life balance, and there's more flexible working, for example. A lot of companies are still trying to get everyone back into the office full time, but a lot of people have, accepted this new model. So what does that mean for women? Has that actually helped them, or has it set them back when it comes to these leadership positions?
I think it helps women because it untethers us from the office. I don't need to be in the office for 12 hours a day. I can do a lot of things at home. At night, I can log back onto the system and clear things out. I didn't have that flexibility before. COVID really brought that for us. We've got limitations on our side in my business, but I think that we do have a lot more opportunities now. And again, it's not just for the women, it's also for the men as well.
There's a really interesting example of gender bias I'd like to share with you. And it's how blind auditions changed the face of American orchestras in the 70s, where 6% of women made up American orchestras, basically. However, off the back of blind testing, they now make up a huge percentage, and I think they almost make up a third of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, all because of blind auditions, you see. So what does this mean? And do you think we need these types of blind auditioning when it comes to business? Because we're still sort of, we're not there yet, are we?
We're not quite there yet, and yes, we do need to improve our approaches, and we're doing that on the US side, for example, by focusing on qualifications. When you try to level the playing field and look at the qualifications, you're going to find a lot of women who are extremely well qualified or overqualified for those jobs that maybe men were getting in the past. It's also very important to take a look at the total composition of the team. For us, diversity means not just gender balance, but diversity of ideas, diversity of backgrounds. So for us, when we've got an equal choice of two equally qualified candidates, a lot of times we're choosing the diversity because we want that different approach in the office, because we recognize that collaborative, inclusive approach results in a better product for us.
What about the notion of unconscious bias? Because no matter how much you want to say you don't have it, every single person in this room has unconscious bias, depending on how they've been brought up, how they've been conditioned in whatever sort of upbringing they've had, and education as well. What do we do? How do we combat unconscious bias? Is it the fact that we've got to admit it first and then try and work on that? And how do you know whether you've got unconscious bias?
I think we all recognize that unconscious bias exists. I think that we're all guilty of it in some way. We just can't get around it. But recognizing that exists and then taking measures to really counter the unconscious bias is really important. Some of those measures include ensuring that there are women like me in these leadership positions to show that, yes, women can do these jobs as well. Other opportunities are really coaching and mentoring. I like to do 360-degree mentoring up to really call out the leadership when maybe they are guilty of unconscious bias and say, hey, do you realize that maybe that was interpreted not the way you intended? But also to encourage the younger colleagues coming through the system, not just the women, but also those who come from maybe less represented backgrounds, encouraging them to overcome those biases and just do the best possible job that they can, develop their qualifications so that they will have every chance to move forward.
So what sort of encouragement have you had professionally as well? Did you ever have a mentor? Did you ever have someone that inspired you or a role model? And how important are those elements for anyone that's looking to sort of climb the ladder professionally?
I think it's fundamental. Everyone needs a mentor, everyone. And I think that everyone should be mentoring. So I think that that's really important. It's really interesting to think about our childhood as well, and the role of our moms on us, and how we get encouragement from our parents or from our extended family structure. I think that's critically important, and I think that women are in a really unique position to be giving that reinforcement to kids and encouraging them to keep pushing forward. That came from my mom. My mom encouraged me to do anything that I wanted to do, that I could be just as good as the boys at anything. And what did I do? I pursued national security, a very male-dominated field. And I've had mentors also within our system, within the State Department, who have really encouraged me to take on those tough jobs. They've encouraged me to go after the big boy jobs, the really tough ones. And I did that. I don't think that that is the right path for everyone. I don't think that you have to take on the hardest jobs all the time, but you do need to make sure that you are focused on your own career, focus on getting the qualifications that you need to move forward, because no one's going to come to you just because there's a women's quota and say, oh, you're smart, you should go into this position. You need to have the qualifications.
How has it been working in male-dominated areas throughout your career as well? Has it been an easy ride?
I haven't really focused on it, honestly. I focus more on doing the best possible job that I could do and moving forward. A common question that I get, I've served in Saudi Arabia, and everyone asks, how is serving in Saudi Arabia? And my response is that it was wonderful. I had access to women, and I had access to men. The men were very open to working with me, and it was a very successful experience for me, and I had more opportunities than my male colleagues who could not access the women and family part of the culture. It's changing now in Saudi Arabia. Of course, this was some years ago, but I see it as an opportunity.
So how do you think women are doing generally in these global roles, not just senior level leadership, but in a global role like yours?
Honestly, I think it's a struggle for everyone. I think there are always struggles. I think that we need to continue to support each other. I think that leadership really needs to be looking out, again, not just for the women, but for others who may not represent the traditional person who is generally in that role. So I think that this is a team effort to make sure that women are continuing to come through the system. And I think that we have a job to do too as women, to look out for others and to really demonstrate that we can be just as talented and smart and great at our jobs as our male counterparts.
So what are those main challenges that still remain? Is there anything that's sort of there at the moment that you think is a particular struggle that needs to change?
Yeah, I think that the challenge is always showing that there is no one right way to do a job. For example, what we found in our system is that women tend to be more collaborative, more team-oriented. The leadership style that a lot of men in our system have has been more directive. There's a time and a place for both kinds of leadership styles, but there's an opportunity to show that collaborative, kind of nice girl approach to things that can be very successful and that can work. People don't have as much experience with that. So that's where women like me are really trying to show, you know what, you can get ahead, you can be a collaborator, you can be a nice person, you don't have to have the pointy elbows, really to move ahead and be very successful.
In a position such as yours, do you find it's a responsibility as well to help encourage other women? And are you doing anything about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mentor all the time. Even yesterday, I had a conversation internally in our consulate as part of our federal women's program. So it's a constant theme of engagement for us. But I don't want to leave out our male colleagues, because I feel like they should be supported too. We need to be supporting each other. And just going back to what I mentioned earlier, a lot of men have expressed to me they want to be able to spend more time with their families as well. They don't want to have to work 12 hours in the office. So we need to figure out a way to bring balance for everyone, and then we'll be successful together.
We need to make it an even playing field. And as we mentioned, so wonderful to see so many men in the crowd today. It really is excellent. Thank you so much for joining us here today. What are the key pieces of advice you give to people when they look for mentorship then?
Yeah, again, I mean, to look around. Not just female mentors, male mentors as well. We really need to cast a wider net. Stay in touch with your mentors, develop those relationships with your mentors. And for me, it needs to be 360 degrees, laterally and below as well. And calling out leadership when you need to explain to leadership, the approach maybe is not getting the result that you intended, for example. We need to really be speaking truth to power. That's important because that unconscious bias does still exist, and we need to keep working together to improve the situation for again, not just women, but others who are coming from non-traditional backgrounds.
Let's speak about the role of men, actually, and their input, because, of course, no conversation can be done without male input, of course not, and it has to be an even playing field. So how important is that male voice within any type of institution or company or whatever it might be? How important is that to get sort of men on side?
Absolutely critical, but it's really critical to go back and look at equity. Make sure that you're being fair with everyone. Going back and when you're hiring for a job, looking at the qualifications. You're not hiring someone because he's a nice guy, would be a good team player. You're hiring someone with the best qualifications or someone who brings a specific kind of diversity or specific viewpoints to the team. And it really needs to come from both the male leadership and the female leadership.
Right, your final piece of advice when it comes to any women here, maybe that are watching online or in the crowd and they're aspiring to get into a global position or even just a senior position as well. What are your key pieces of advice you can leave us here with today?
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage women, you can do it. You can do those really tough jobs, national security, political, military affairs, these really tough male-dominated industries. We really need women's voices and women's perspectives. And I don't understand why there aren't more women there. We need to bring more women into science and technology. We need to have more women into these heavily male-dominated fields because that's a perspective that I think is unique and complements the male approaches to doing things. So I would encourage everyone to, if it's a tough challenge, tough task, you're up for it and go for it.
And it only makes us even more determined, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and better qualified for whatever our next steps are.
Exactly. It's been such a privilege to share the stage with you. We cannot thank you enough for being here at the Women in Leadership Forum here at the IGF UA. Thank you so much for your excellency. Wonderful
Thanks, Laura.
to speak with you.
Thank you. Thanks. Great to be here. Thanks.